Thanks, Paul. Good afternoon. Oh, you can do better than that. Let's try it again. Good afternoon. Did you have a good lunch? Ate too much? Didn't eat too much. That's good. Well, to get this going here, here we go. How many of you have seen The Secret? Well, not that many. If you go on the other side of the ocean, everybody's watching it. If you haven't seen The Secret, I would recommend you get a copy of it. Get a copy of the DVD. You read the book, it's different. The DVD, it really will wake something up inside of you that's very important that it wakes up. It's about the law of attraction, and the law of attraction is always working. The question is, have we got it working for us, or are we working it against ourselves? And I am going to go through some ideas here this afternoon that have literally changed my life. I've got license to brag about everything I'm going to share with you because none of it's mine. I have just been a very curious guy now since 1961 when I picked up this book. I've been reading this same book, well, this copy since '63. It's fallen apart on me. But I take this everywhere I go. And I'm going to tell you how this really got me on a different track, and then what I've done, and some of the things that happened, some of the things I found out, and I think you're going to find it pretty fascinating. I have been in the business now for around 38, 39 years, teaching this information all over the globe. And it is absolutely fascinating information, the way we get into it. Now, the way I get into it is the way I was taught. And I have found it pretty fascinating. Now, today's presentation is going to be in two parts. All right? The first part, I am going to explain a phenomenal opportunity to you. And I do it for this reason. This is how this was presented to me. Now, I probably had opportunities presented to me many times prior to what I'm referring to here. I was 26. At the time, I thought I was fairly old getting a hold of this. As I look back, I realize I was very young. The second part is on what you have to do to really take advantage of the opportunity. You see, I know that many of you have been to these events before. And you're looking, is this one going to be any different? You come in with the idea, I'm going to do certain things, I'm not going to do certain things. And I'm going to ask you to really open up your mind and don't necessarily accept what I'm saying, but don't reject it either. I want you to evaluate it. Because you see, I operate on the premise that you and I are nothing but a massive intelligence. Now, there's times when we act like we're not, but we really are. And if we utilize the potential we've got, our life can be so much different than it is. Now, we had a sheet put out on the chair. I'm going to ask you to take a moment right now to fill in this sheet. Now, I'm not going to ask you to turn it in. At the end of the presentation, you will decide whether you're going to turn it in or tear it up. And that's fine. But I'm going to ask you to take the time now to fill it in. Now, I do this for a reason. I want to challenge this defense mechanism that we've all got within us. Because we really do have a defense mechanism. And some of you right now are letting the paradigm control you rather than follow the suggestion I'm giving you. I've already told you at the end of the presentation, I am going to suggest you do one of two things. And then you can go ahead and do it. Now, as we break this presentation down, I'm going to explain why some people study this for years and never really make it happen. And some of you have. Some of you bought a lot of programs, different cassette programs. I started on records They didn't even have cassettes when I started to study this. You'd think I'm as old as the Bible when I say that, but that's actually how I started. So I'm going to ask you to take a few minutes and fill in the sheet. You haven't got one? There's lots of them around here. There, now you got one. You probably got 10. You need them over here. Is there staff around? If you don't have a sheet, you hold up your hand. I see some people running out the aisle here. Pardon me, could you grab a couple here for me? There's a couple here on blank chairs, and pass them over there. Appreciate it. I'm going to go back now and talk about The Secret for a minute. The Secret is it's a phenomenal DVD. I have been interviewed in I don't know how many shows in America and in Canada, and they're continually saying, why do you think this thing has hit the way it has? It's sold millions of DVDs. The books are going wild. It's into the multi-million in the books. And it's as popular in one place as it is in another. It's spreading all over the world. I was going through Hong Kong a couple of weeks ago, and I see it all over the bookstores in Hong Kong. Doesn't seem to matter where you go. The Secret is there, and it's growing in popularity. And I said, I think The Secret gives us something that we're looking for. It resonates with the higher side of our personality. Now, The Secret, of course, is based on the law of attraction. Back in 1959, Earl Nightingale had a spoken record. It was on a record, The Strangest Secret. And Earl said at the time it was strange that it was called a secret because it was so obvious. And the strangest secret was that we become what we think about. Now, as he pointed out, all the religious leaders that have ever lived, all the great philosophers, all the great business people have all been in complete unanimous agreement on this one point, that we truly do become what we think about. And if you go back in history and keep checking, that's what you're going to find. So he says it's strange that it's a secret. So few people discover it. Now at that time, get past this slide, there he is in 1970 receiving a gold record for it for Columbia Records. This was the first time a record outside of the entertainment industry sold over 1 million copies. It was a very, very well-known record at that time. Now, that was recorded in 1959. I got a hold of it in 1961. That, along with this book, literally changed the way my thinking went. Now, I think everyone wants freedom. I believe that's genetic. It's inherent within the human. We want to be free. We are seeking time and money freedom. I believe there's an underlying force that brought you here because you're looking for this. It takes me where I go because that's what we're looking for. We're looking for time and money freedom. Now, what do we really mean by that? We want to be able to do whatever we want, when we want, with whom we want, wherever we want. If we want to go somewhere, we want to be able to go. Yet we don't want to have to ask ourselves, can I afford it? Now, this doesn't mean that you just frivolously throw money away. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about if you won't go into a clothes store and you like a garment, you get it. If you go into most clothes stores and you watch people shop, first thing they look at is the price tag. Very, very few people are driving the car that they would really like to drive. Most people don't take the vacations they'd like to take. The world is a fascinating place, and it's a very interesting place. For the past 30-some years, I've gone into many different countries and different cultures, and it's just mind-boggling as we travel around. Well, I think that that's what time and money freedom gives us. And as I found out, I heard someone say it one time, and I found it to be true, that you will be absolutely amazed how much free time you have when you never have to think about money. When we have money challenges, it consumes an enormous amount of our time. It really does. And there's no need of it. We don't need to do it. Now, at one time, I would never have believed that. I had a man sit down with me in Toronto back in 1960-61, and he put an R on a sheet of paper. And then he put 3 letters down beside it. He said, Bob, let this represent happiness. This is health, and this is wealth. Then he asked me if I thought he was a happy guy. And I said, yeah, he seemed pretty happy to me. He said, have you ever seen me when I was broke? And I said, no. He said, have you ever seen me when I was sick? And I had to say, no. Well, he said, you've got to be one of the most miserable people I have ever met. And you know, I was. I really was. I knew what he was saying was right. He said, you are just plain miserable. Yet, and he said, you're always broke. You never have any money. And I never did. He was actually being kind. I was earning $4,000 a year at the time, and I owed $6,000. I was worse than broke. I mean, I was going backwards. I often say I was in the passing lane, picking up speed, but going in the wrong direction. Yet he said, you're always sick. Now, he said, you don't have a terminal illness or anything, but you've always got a headache or a cold. He said, why don't you change your results? You know, to tell you the God's truth, I never thought of it. You'd say, well, you must have thought. No, I never really did. I really didn't have any hope. I mean, my life was just not very happy. See, if I had taken every cent I earned for 18 months to pay debts, I would have just broken even, and I would have had nothing to live on for 18 months. So you see, the idea of getting out of debt, it just never really entered my mind. Oh, I would have liked to, but I never thought I could. I could not see a way out. Now, you know, I think that there's a lot of people live that way. Yet you get to a point where it's just sort of that's your life. That's just the way it is. Yet, and you get sort of numb and you accept it. And he said, life doesn't have to be like that. You see, I had no formal education. I had 2 months high school. No one in our family ever went to school. When you got 15, 16, they asked you, are you going to go? Well, I said, no, hell, I'm out of here. You know, I didn't like school. I started to study this before I had any children. I just changed one question. It changed their whole life. I didn't ask them if they were going to go. I asked them where they were going to go. Do you know, the smallest little change can make an enormous difference? Well, I had no business experience. I had just a horrendous work record. I got out of school, I worked in factories, I went into the Navy, I went in an ordinary seaman, I come out a naval seaman because they have to make you a naval seaman after, I think, 18 months, something like that. I had nothing going to my credit. I got out, I was working in bars and in factories, and I was sitting in a fire hall when I met this man. But there was something about the way he approached me, the way he hit my mind, that although I didn't believe in me, I believed in his belief in me. This guy was so adamant that I could change. He said, do you know that there's absolute laws governing happiness? He said, the earning of money is an exact science. And he said, you've got an ingenious system built within you to keep your body in excellent working order. He said, you can have anything you want. The most erudite scientist alive can't even guess at what you and I are capable of. Yet, and he was talking about me. I could feel, he was right into me. He said something that stuck. He says, success is about goals. Now, I didn't have any goals. The only way I think of goals of soccer or hockey or something, I never really thought of goals as something you work toward. But he asked me what my goal was. Well, of course, I didn't have one. Then he gave me this book to read. Yet, and the author says this is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Yet in this book, the author says there's a secret in this book. Yet he said if you can find the secret in the book, you can have anything you seriously want. Well, of course, I didn't believe that. But you know what I have found? You don't have to believe it. If you write a lie on a card and you read it often enough, you're going to start to believe it. Yet you see, he tells you in this book to decide what you want, write it on a card, and then read that card as often as possible every day. You just keep reading it over and over and over again. And so I wrote what I wanted on a card. I wanted money. I honestly believed if I could get these people off my back, everything was going to be fine. I wrote on the card that I wanted to have in my possession by New Year's Day of 1970, $25,000. I did not believe it would happen. But I kept taking this card out and I kept reading it. Yet I'd put it back in my pocket. One day, one of the guys in the fire hall saw me doing this. Yet they said, Proctor, what are you reading? I said, nothing. Jam it back in my pocket. He said, come on, Proctor, you're reading something. What is it? And then you know what guys can be like. And one said to the other, I think maybe Proctor's got something in his pocket about us. I think we should see this. What do you guys think? Well, before long, I'm on the floor, and they're going in my pockets, and they're pulling out my gold card. Yet it said by New Year's Day of 1970, I will have in my possession $25,000. Well, everybody started laughing. Proctor's going to get rich. Hey, guys, come and listen to this. Yet they'd read the card to them. Now, I can remember that day as if it was yesterday, and it's almost a half a century ago. I was embarrassed. And I've often thought back, what a sick environment that was. Here's people laughing at me because I am attempting to improve the quality of my life. But what's even worse is I was embarrassed because they found out. Now, fortunately, I didn't throw the card away. I kept reading it. I'm going to tell you what happened. It took me years to figure out what actually happened. I quit thinking of debt, and I started to think of earning money. Well, somebody said, weren't you thinking of that before? No, I was thinking of debt. If your goal is to get out of debt, you'll probably never get out of debt. Because if you're thinking debt, that's what you're going to attract. But you say, but it's get out. I don't care whether it's get out or get in. If you're thinking debt, you're giving that energy to the universal intelligence, and that's exactly what you're going to attract. Yet, you see, because I had written on here about earning money, I kept reading it, I started to think of earning money. And because I started to think about it, I started to hear people talking about it. Yet, because I started to hear people talking about it, that got me thinking about it more. Do you know that my whole life started to change? Now, I believe there's a group of people that have these cards. I got these made in little plastic sleeves, and we've had enough sent over for everyone here. And if you want to pass those out now, you can pass them out. to the audience. I'll just keep going while you pass them out. Now, on the back of the card, there's a place for the date. And you write the date down that you feel you could reach the goal. Now, I'm going to talk about goals a little later on, the second half of this program. Yet, this isn't something you think you can do. This has got to be something you want to do. So I'm going to ask you not to write anything on the card until you get home this evening. Don't write anything on it. I want you to process all of the information I'm going to give you, and believe me, I am going to give you some real valuable information. Then on the card, the only thing in the future is the date. That has to do with a law called the law of gender. See, the law of attraction is a secondary law. It's not really the law. It's the law of vibration is the law. Yeah, the law of vibration sets up the attractive force. Like you have the ability to put yourself, mind and body, into the vibration you want to be in. Your brain is an electronic switching station. As you think, you activate brain cells. That sets up a vibration in your being. The vibration you're in dictates what you attract. Now, I didn't understand any of this, but you don't have to understand it to have it working. That's what you call an unconscious competent. And I started to earn all kinds of money. And it just kept earning it. I went from earning $4,000 a year to $175,000 a year in a year. Then it took it over $1 million. I have earned many, many millions of dollars. I have taught all kinds of people how to earn millions. Few of those people on The Secret are people that I have coached. Did you see, this is written in the Upanishads, the most ancient of writing. If you could throw this up on the screen, please. It's the most ancient writing there is. From abundance, he took abundance, and still abundance remained. From abundance, he took abundance, and still abundance remained. Do you know what that means? That means that there's enough for everyone. Thomas Troward wrote one time on the spirit of opulence, he said, when you're dealing with infinite, you can never take more than your share. Now, we've got this in the little plastic sleeve so it doesn't get all dog-eared in your pocket. And don't stick it away in a wallet or something. Put it in your purse or in your pocket, so every time you touch it, it triggers the picture on your mind. And then you write the goal in the present tense. If it's money you want, it's money you can have. Frequently, though, when we set a money goal, it isn't the money that motivates us, it's what we're going to do with it that motivates us. Now, I started to read that book, Think and Grow Rich. And I started to earn a lot of money. Yet it was a strange thing. I just got hooked on the book and I couldn't stop reading it. Now, that was the first book I'd ever read. I was 26 years old and I'd never read another book. I didn't even read comic books. Yet, you know, I don't think, again, I was an exception to the rule. I really don't. But my life changed so dramatically that I wasn't satisfied just with the win. I had to know why. Why was I winning? Yet didn't make sense. Everything I had been taught was proving to be false. I was taught you had to be really smart if you're going to earn a lot of money. I was earning a lot of money and I knew I wasn't that smart. But you know, in that book, Andrew Carnegie told Napoleon Hill, he said the accumulation of great wealth calls for power. Yet power is acquired through highly organized, yet intelligently directed specialized knowledge. But, he said, that knowledge does not necessarily have to be in the possession of the person who accumulates the fortune. Andrew Reynolds didn't have the knowledge, but he got the fortune. He's already told you. He went, yet he bought the knowledge down in Memphis, Tennessee. Here he says, it pays to know where to buy knowledge. I didn't have to be the smartest guy in town. I just had an idea. And I attracted whatever I needed. And I was earning millions of dollars. I had no business experience. I was told when I left public school, grade 8, Miss Strawn said to me, where are you going to go? And I said, I'm going to Melbourne Collegiate. Oh, Bob, she said, don't go to Collegiate. You'll never do well in the business world. Go to Danforth Tech and learn a trade. What I know? I mean, the teacher's like God to a kid. So off I went to Danforth Tech. I was only there about a week, and I shoved my thumb right into a bandsaw. It was dangling. Then to sew it back on, it still doesn't feel right. It gets cold, it hurts. And that's 50, 60 years ago. I only lasted there a couple of months. And the way I was. Yet you see, what Miss Strawn told me, it influenced every decision I made until I was 26. I never tried to get a good job. I didn't have formal education. The only place I knew to look for a job was in the paper. And it pointed out there, you've got to have experience. I didn't have any experience. So I never even tried. I had no experience. I had no formal education. I just did anything that come along. Now that is not a good way to live, but that's the way I was living. And you know something? That's the way a lot of people live. Do you know that 1% of the population earns 96% of all the money that's being earned? It's so ridiculously out of balance that if you're not familiar with the statistics, you probably won't believe them. But that's the way it is. Now, you see, you don't have to be very bright to earn a lot of money. There's people that are functionally illiterate. They can neither read nor write, and they're multimillionaires. There's other people, and you know some, who are absolutely brilliant, and they're walking the street, they can't even find work. They're broke. Do you know, if we just pay attention to what's going on around us, we'll realize almost everything we've been taught is false. If we were start to read some of the great books, some of the best books, every one of them says nobody can even guess at what you and I can do. And what do? We just sort of wander along, wondering what's going to happen. If we did start to think, we would truly grow rich. And you see, I started to study this, and it started to change my life. I was listening to Earl Nightingale every day. I was driving around with a battery-operated record player, listening to records. You can imagine how happy I was when they brought out cassettes, and I didn't have to hold the record player. That's a hell of a good way to try and kill yourself, I'll tell you that. And I'm reading that book. Then one day I woke up, and I thought, I'm going to leave my business, and I'm going to go and work with Earl Nightingale. Now, there's me in 1968 working with Earl Nightingale and Lloyd Conant. Now, Earl had quite a sense of humor, and that I was standing there, and Earl was probably saying to Lloyd, do you think this kid's ever going to put on any weight? I mean, I could probably hear him say it. See? But you know what I started to do? I started to get coached by some of the best people in the world. I started out with Ray Stanford. He's the man that got me into this. Now, Ray was no one special. He just had a special way with people. And I was somebody that he helped. And that got me listening to Earl. And so then I went to work with them. And I spent 5 years working side by side with these people. I knew their product better than they knew it. I had been studying it for 7, 8, 9 years when I went to work there. And I made up my mind I wanted to be their vice president of sales. Not because I wanted to be a vice president of sales, but that would give me an office right beside Earl's. And that's where I ended up. And I started to study him. And I got to meet some of the people he studied. And I got reading the books he read. Yet I subscribed to the magazines he subscribed to. And I thought, I'm going to watch this guy. And I'm going to listen to him. Now, back in 1968, there wasn't a lot of talk about coaching or mentors or anything like that. But that's what they were. Then I met a man in Western Canada named Leland Valvandewaal. Great big guy. I have a couple of business partners here, Paul Martinelli and Jerry Robert, and I was talking to Jerry at noon about Val. He was such a phenomenal man. And he and I became very good friends, and I learned so much from him. You see, I wanted to know why I changed. Yet I couldn't find anybody to tell me. Yet I thought, somebody has to know why I changed. See, I would buy that book. I'd buy all there was in the store, and I was giving them to people. I started to buy the records by the dozen. Then I started to buy them by 100, and I was handing them out. I was like a person with religious tracts on the corner. I was going to save everybody. But they didn't change, and I did. I thought, wonder why? And I thought, somebody has to know why. And they've either written it in a book or they're talking about it. So I made up my mind. I'd read every book that was ever written if I had to. And I'd start going and studying. I'd find people that knew things, and I'd go and I'd find out from them. And I'd do whatever they tell me. See? How many of you thought what Andrew shared this morning was brilliant? God, I sat up the back there listening. I've been around the business for a long time. He has some phenomenal wealth-building concepts. Absolutely phenomenal. Well, you see, I made up my mind I was going to study with the best. I was very shy, quiet, and withdrawn. That's my genetic nature. Somebody say, well, I don't believe that. Well, you don't have to believe it. You can reject anything you hear. But that's the way I was. But I had studied this, and I'd studied it for years. And one day, it was an audience just about this size, and it was just broken into 2 panels. And Bill Gove was standing on the floor, looking this way. He had his hand up. And I was at the back of the room listening. He said, if I want to be free, I've got to be me. Not the me I think you think I should be. Not the me I think my wife thinks I should be. Not the me I think my kids think I should be. If I want to be free, I've got to be me. And I thought, wow, that's the truth. You know, when you hear the truth, you'll know it. Why? Because it resonates with the essence of who you are. And you know, I had listened to Earl Nightingale's attitude message called The Magic Word. Some of you are familiar with it. I don't know, maybe a couple of thousand times. Yet on that record, he said, now right here we come to a rather strange fact. We tend to minimize the things we can do, the goals we can accomplish, yet for some equally strange reason, we think other people can do things that we cannot. He said, I want you to know that that's not true. Now, I don't know how many times I heard it and how many times I read it, but if you'd asked me if I understood it, I said, of course I understand it. I understood it intellectually, but that was it. Yet here I'm listening to Bill Gove, and I had all this knowledge that I'd been studying, and I had such a tremendous desire to share it, to teach it. But hell, if I stood up to ask a question, I'd start to cry, my nerves would go, and I'd have to sit down. And I thought, I can't do that. If I could only do it like, and you know, when I was thinking that, all of a sudden, I could hear Earl Nightingale. The tape started to play in my head. Now, right here, we come to a rather strange fact. We tend to minimize the goals we can accomplish, the things we can accomplish, and we think other people can do things that we cannot. He said, I want you to understand that that's not true. And it was just like a euphoric experience. And I thought, that's what he's talking about. If Gove can do it, I can do it. And so I made up my mind, standing at the back of the ballroom in the O'Hare Hyatt, that man would be my coach. He would coach me. Yet, right up until he died, he was a very good friend of mine, and he was my coach. In fact, the last time he spoke was at one of my events. That was in October. He died in November. If he had lasted until January, he would have been 90. He was doing what he loved right to the end. And isn't that the way it's supposed to be? Now, I started a company called Life Success Productions. We have a group of companies. You're going to hear from the president of Life Success Publishing later on today. Just a phenomenal guy. When I met him, he was earning $100,000 a year. Mark Victor Hansen introduced me to him. Mark and I were shooting a video series, and he knew Jerry. He says, come on over here. Yet he said, if you want to earn money, talk to Proctor. So he started to talk to me, and I said, well, I could show you how to earn that every month if you would do what I tell you. He said, I'll do what you tell me. I've seen him do that many months. I've seen him do it in a week. I've seen him do it in a day. He's made many millions of dollars. And we became very good friends and then business partners. But Life Success Productions has operated all over the world. It's a great company, and we have a great time. Now, the opportunity I want to talk to you about is the SGR briefcase. This thing is It's incredible. It really is. This is the result of studying one book since 1968. And it can actually help you earn millions of dollars. It really can. I'm going to show it to you, and then I'm going to start talking to you about you and what this can do. And this is the way we ship it. We have a seal here, SGR, and that's based on The Science of Getting Rich. The Science of Getting Rich is a book I have studied since 1968. And we turned it into a program, and this has to be one of the most phenomenal programs you'll ever lay your hands on. The entire program is here in this briefcase. There's 16 lessons. It's a live seminar, and we go through each one of these lessons. There's 16 of them. It's based on the book. The whole program is on CDs here in this holder. Dr. Michael Beckwith from The Secret introduces the program and each lesson, all 16 lessons. I teach the lesson, and Jack Canfield, who's on The Secret, who's also one of the co-founders of Chicken Soup for the Soul, they have sold over 100 million books. He does a summary. Then there's a $500 gift certificate here off the live seminar. So it's all on CD. Then the whole program is here in an MP3 player. Now, I want to talk to you about you and about what this program can do, because this is a mind-boggling program. This will satisfy the wants of almost anyone in this room. Now, I want you to think of this. The main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. That's a very old saying that I adopted a long time ago. Yet, and I heard Andrew Reynolds talk about it here a little while ago. You know, we get one life, just one life, and it's really about lifestyle. How are we going to spend it? Just a year ago, last month, May, my mother and my sister went to the doctor. Mother wasn't well, although she had been very well up to that point. And the doctor told her that she just had about 3 months to live. Helen phoned me and said, they were still at the doctor's office, and said, "Do you want to talk to Mom?" And I said, "Yeah." And I wasn't quite sure what I was going to say, so she told me what it was, and she said, "Well, we'll just make the best of it. That's what we've always done." Yeah, that's really the way it was. And it was a very interesting summer. We had a wonderful summer with her. She was 93. Everything went along fine up to that point. But she had no regrets. She lived a very full life. She was a phenomenal guide for my brother and sister and I. Yes, see, I have often said in seminars that I think it would be a tragedy to get to the end of the road, know you're at the end of the road, and wonder what would have happened if we had started that business. Wonder what would have happened if we had moved to that city or that country. Wonder what would have happened if. Just wondering. Wouldn't it be so much better to relive them all? God, I remember when we started this, and I remember when we did that. Why don't we do what we really want to do? That's an interesting question, because you see, I found when I changed, I didn't have anything going for me that I hadn't had before, except one thing. I was aware. Now, I coach people today. I coach a lot of people, and I coach them all over the world. I have been studying this for close to 50 years. How many would sort of like to have me coach them for a year? And I think you would, because I do have some good stuff. And it's like I say, I got license to brag about all of it because none of it's mine. Let me try this again. How many can hold their arm above their shoulder? Let me see if you can get your arm up. Now, some of you are just sitting there, you know, you're not even raising your arm. You know, Earl Nightingale said when some people, when their heart stops beating, it's going to be a formality. They just don't move, you know. Let me try it again. How many would like me to coach them for an entire year? Yeah, a whole lot more arms went up. You see, you've got it inside and you're not expressing it. Yeah, I'd want to. Well, then stand up and say so. Now look at. There's two things we're not taught in school. There's a number of things we're not taught, but two that are vitally important. One, we're not taught how to make decisions. We're not. That's why you find people wandering around saying, what do you think I should do? What do you think I should do? And they're asking someone who doesn't think. I remember what Earl Nightingale, he said, if most people said what they were thinking, they would be speechless. Dr. Ken McFarland said 2% of the people think, 3% think they think, yet he said 95% would actually rather die than think. Now you'd be saying, well, everybody thinks. Hardly anybody thinks. Mental activity does not constitute thinking. Do you know just the things that are going on around you cause mental activity because these things come in through your senses into your consciousness? I'm going to suggest you start to listen to the conversations that are going on around you. The people never say what they were saying if they were thinking. Stand back objectively and watch what some people are doing. They would never do what they're doing if they were thinking. Most people don't think. And we're going around, what do you think I should do? I want to give you a suggestion, and you can do what you want with it. Next time you have a feeling to do something, don't even look sideways. Ask no one what they think you should do. Now, I'm going to tell you that's going to be a hard directive to follow, because we're running around, well, I have so many people tell me, they want to go into business, but my wife would be upset. Oh, really? So she's living her life through you then? Well, no, but I mean, you've got to respect her. Well, of course you should respect your wife. And she should respect her husband. But we shouldn't be letting the person we're married to direct where we're going. Why do we do that? Well, probably because our parents did. Why do they do it? Probably because their parents did. We're programmed. I remember when my wife and I first got together about 30 years ago, we were shopping, and I said, you know what I'd like is some turnip. So I picked up a turnip. She said, what are you going to do with that? Well, I said I was going to eat it. Well, she said, I'm not eating that. That's the root of the turnip. We give that to the pigs. What? I said, well, what do you eat? Well, she said, we eat the green. Well, I says, isn't that the damnedest thing? We give the green to the pigs. Now, you see, I was born and raised in northern Ontario in Canada. She was born and raised in the southern United States, in Alabama and in Pensacola, Florida. Two totally different cultures. Do you know what culture is? Group habit. And that was a habit, neither one of us. And I thought, well, hell, I'm not going to fight over a turnip. So I put the turnip back, and I'm walking through the store, and then the root of I never thought of it as a root. But I thought, I guess it grows in the ground, so yeah, it would be a root probably. Then I started to think, I wonder who decided we'd eat the root. Would it have been Mom? Well, no, because Grandma cooked it. Wonder if it was Grandma. And I thought, God, I may have to go back for generations to find out who made that decision. Then I started to wonder who in her family decided they'd eat the green. And finally, I got so confused, I just quit thinking about it. And I thought it really doesn't matter. We just don't eat turnip, But then I started to think about it. It's the principle of the thing. I wonder how many other things we do that we just sort of inherited. Well, that's what I want to talk to you about. Because I don't believe that any of us decided to do most of the things we're doing. I think we inherited it. Do you know what culture is? It's group habit. It's really what it is. Now, here's a good question for you. Wealthy people have always had, what do you think they've always had? Wealthy people have always had. I started to study wealthy people. I was trying to find out why I was earning all this money. Yet, so I thought probably a good thing to do is study people that earn money. And you know what I found out? Most of them don't know. Do you know that most people that are really proficient at something don't know why they're really proficient at it? Now, I made up my mind I was going to find out, and after studying for many years, I did figure it out. I was doing a seminar in New York. Yeah, it was a 3-day program. Yet at the end of it, a great big guy come up to me, and he said, "Bob, I really want to thank you for this program." He said, "You have no idea what it's done for me." And I said, "Well, I probably do, because I know what it's done for me." Well, he said, "For the first time in my life, I understood how I did what I did." I said, "What did you did?" I said, "Tell me, what'd you do?" He said, "I won the gold medal in the decathlon in the Olympics. In 1956, he was the greatest athlete in the world. No one was better than he was, and he didn't even know what he had done. I want you to go to your company or go in your family and pick somebody who's really good at what they're doing. They probably don't know why. Corporations spend millions shadowing their stars trying to figure out what they do, yet they can't figure it out. If they could, they'd bottle it and give it to everybody." Well, I started to study wealthy people, and I'm going to tell you something. They come in all different shapes and sizes, colors, genders, from this country, that country, from this side of the tracks, the other side of the tracks. It's got nothing to do with where you've been. Nothing, absolutely nothing. Here I was, broke, bad attitude, sick, never had done anything, and bang, like that, all of a sudden I'm earning millions. How come? Well, here's your answer. They all have multiple sources of income. They don't have one, they have all kinds of them. And you want to know something? You can too. Look at this as your bank. And see this as an MSI. An MSI is a multiple source of income. Do you know that you can have as many sources of income as you want? You can just keep them coming from all different parts of the world. How many of you would really like to have income coming in from multiple sources from all over the world? Let me see a show of hands. Now our arms are going up a little better now. Well, do you know there isn't one person in here that couldn't do that? And I'm going to tell you something. Andrew Reynolds has already told you how, and now I am going to put some icing on the cake and tell you again. I don't even know how many sources of income I've got, but I do know it ranks in the thousands. This is a game we're playing. It's a game, that's all it is. And if you know how to play the game, you're going to win. And if you don't, you're screwed, you're going to lose. That's the way it is. I remember being in Times Square in New York one time. There was a great big billboard, and it says, "The person who has the most toys when he dies is still dead." And I thought, damn, is that the truth? So you should never let them own you. If you get to a point where you won't lend something, give it away. But it's a great game to play because it does give you freedom. And I have spent the last 38, 39 years teaching people how to play this game. You can just keep adding the sources of income and from all over the world. And with the internet today, it's a breeze. An absolute breeze. Now, everything I have ever done in teaching this has been directed towards that end. You see, school does not teach us how to earn money. You can go to Oxford, Harvard, go to the most prestigious schools in the world. None of them teach you how to earn money. And for good reason. The people that are teaching don't know. They don't. That doesn't mean they're bad people. It just means that they don't know something. This is a strange thing. I did about a 1-hour interview with Newsweek magazine in America. Now, it was on The Secret. Yet I give them all kinds of ideas, substantiating what The Secret's all about. Not one word of what I said was in the magazine. The author of the article, and it was a 4-page article, He was a distinguished journalist. This guy had really made it in journalism. He had won all kinds of awards. And the preamble to the article was all about how much this guy knew about journalism. And then you read the article, he was advertising his ignorance about this subject. He knows nothing about this subject. Nothing. If I were to really investigate, he couldn't even tell me why he was so distinguished in journalism. Because he obviously knows nothing about the mind or the laws of the universe. Now here's the strange part. Because he's so distinguished in his field, we automatically assume that everything he writes is right. A good neurosurgeon doesn't necessarily make a great test pilot. If you're going to learn how to fly a plane, you probably don't go to your dentist. We want to understand that this is a subject very few people study. Now you say, well, are the MSIs all the same size? Oh, no. Oh, no. Some are big, and some aren't very big. But I'll tell you something. Andrew Reynolds will give you a lot of ideas. Now keep thinking about this. We're talking about the law of attraction. Now, some of you have watched The Secret and you understand the law of attraction, but some of you may not understand the law of attraction or really got into the laws very much, but you've been studying and there's something missing. I mean, you've been reading the books, you've been reading. How many fall in that category? You just know that there's something that's missing because you know that you should be doing it and it isn't happening. Let me see a show of hands. Yeah, a lot of hands go up. Now, I'll tell you how I figured this out. I was winning, and I started to go to seminars to try and figure out why. Because I was the most shocked guy in town. I mean, I wasn't supposed to be winning. Yet, so I was going to seminars trying to figure out why I was winning. The other people were going to try and figure out how to win, and I knew if I wasn't getting my answer, they weren't getting theirs. You see, it's not good enough just to tell you, here, do this or do that. You already know how to do better than you're doing. There isn't one of us in here that doesn't know how to do better than we're doing. So we asked ourselves, well, what's stopping us? We know there's something missing. What's holding us back? Well, it's paradigms. Paradigms are holding us back. Now, do you know a lot of people don't even know what a paradigm means? I didn't know what it meant. When I first started to read about it, I thought, what the hell's a paradigm? You know? And so I got books on psychology and psychiatry and behavioral science, and I mean, they did explain what it was, but it was so complicated I didn't understand it. I one time read where President John Kennedy prepared his speeches so a 10-year-old would understand them. That's the way I was taught. Yet, and if it hadn't come to me real simple, baby, I would have never figured it out. Well, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about paradigms, and you know what it is? It's the missing link. It's the little tumbler that won't fall. You know when you get a key cut and you put it in, it won't open the lock, but if you just take a little emery board, maybe you'd file your nails with, and just rub it a little bit and stick it back in, you've seen that happen. It's that little bird, just that tiny little thing, a little emery cloth to rub it off, and bang, the door opens. That's the way the paradigm is. What I did back in 1961, I shifted my paradigm. I didn't know what I had done. It took me 9 years to figure it out. Now the question is, can paradigms be changed? Well, the answer is yes. Yes, paradigms can be changed. It's an emphatic yes. Now, you see, this is sort of where Ray Stanford got me back in 1961. When you really start to know that it can be changed, that you can get it, you have hope. Now, I'm going to tell you, after the break, I'm going to show you exactly how to do it, and there isn't a person in here that won't get it. I will show kids. In one of our programs, we have taken teenagers and compounded their mark. Where they've been studying and failing, they've become honor students almost overnight. See, they've got the information inside, they don't know how to get it out. I would hate to guess at the number of people I've seen change, tens of thousands of people. Do you know what happens when we have hope? See, that's what you get coming to these meetings, you get hope. When you have hope, that means you have options. You have options. That's incredible. We've got options. We can do anything we want. Do you know, I wake up every morning and I thank God I don't have a job. Usually once a year, I live in Toronto. I actually live in Thornhills, way up north end of Toronto. Once a year, I get stupid. Real stupid. My wife would say that it happens more frequently, but I make an appointment with somebody in an office in downtown Toronto for 9 a.m. And I got to get out with all those other people. You know, the ones that sit in their car for an hour and a half every morning just so they can get real miserable and go and work with somebody they don't like doing what they don't want to do. Then they sit in the car for the same length of time coming home. No wonder they're not, that's why they're dropping dead. That's why they're so sick. That's why so many marriages are all screwed up. They get in such a rotten mood going to do something they don't want to do. I remember, before I ever studied this, I was driving way out to the west end of Toronto. Well, I wasn't driving. I was taking public transportation. I didn't even have a car. Yet I was going to work for this guy. He was mean. He was not a nice person. I just hated going there. And all the way there, I was afraid I was going to get fired. Now, you know, I didn't understand that there was something wrong with that at the time. It's only in retrospect I look at it. There's a whole lot of people live that way. Well, we've got options. We don't have to live that way. We can live whatever way we want. And that's kind of nice. Look at this. In that book, I've got the part marked here in here. This is marked, and it's so powerful. He said there's a difference between wishing for a thing and being ready to receive it. I've read this thousands of times. No one is ready for a thing until they believe that they can acquire it. This state of mind must be belief and not mere hope or wish. Now he said, open-mindedness is essential to beliefs. What did I ask you to do right at the start? I said, just open your mind. Relax. You don't have to accept what I'm saying. Just don't reject it. Analyze it. He said, closed minds will not inspire faith, courage, or belief. Do you know that there's people here that when they left home, they promised they would not buy anything. And then if they do, they're wondering what their brother-in-law is going to say. Oh, you're so stupid, you did that again. Now, you want to check the people out that are saying you're so stupid, because they're the ones that are driving across town, hating where they're going, hoping they don't get fired. Well, here's the key right here. Wishing isn't going to cut it. You got to believe. Wishing, hoping, wishing doesn't do it. You got to get ready for the win. You've really got to be ready. Ray Stanford got me ready. I have got I don't know how many people ready, because I get right into the person's mind and I help them understand it. I don't play with their mind. I help them understand how to change their mind. If you go to bobproctor.com and wander around our website, you will see an endorsement there by Dr. John Mike. He is a very famous psychiatrist in the United States. His wife is too. He said I taught him more about the mind in 1 year than he had learned in 4 years of medical school, 5 years of psychiatric training. That just about blew my mind, because all I taught him is what a good doctor had taught me. What we have to do is learn how to make a decision. Do you know, some of you sat here during Andrew's presentation. I was sitting watching. I thought, this is brilliant what this guy's put together. See, I had heard about him. I even went into his studio and I videotaped a couple of shows, but I had never been to one of his events. But when I heard him doing this, I said, geez, I'd love to do that with you. Some of you sat there and something inside said, do this. And you didn't do it. Why? And you think, God, it costs a lot of money. You know that we will mortgage our house to fix our garage. We do. We spend thousands painting the outside of the house. But yet we're not tuned into investing in our own growth. You see what some of those franchises are worth, it's mind-boggling. Now look at this for a moment. It said, remember, no more effort is required in order to aim high in life, to demand abundance and prosperity, than is required to accept misery and poverty. You see, I think I've got something in my pocket. I've been carrying it around. I do. That's it. I have studied Napoleon Hill and Andrew Carnegie. Andrew Carnegie was the wealthiest man in the world, and he's the one that commissioned Hill to go out and write the laws of success. He introduced him to Ford and Edison and Firestone, these giants of people. Yet, and Carnegie didn't know why he was the wealthiest, but he was trying to figure it out, and he got Hill studying it, and that's where the laws of achievement came from. But Hill asked, Carnegie spent half his life earning money and the other half giving it away. He built the great libraries, you know. But in any way, Hill asked Carnegie, he said, how come you are so wealthy and other people work so hard they have nothing? This was his answer. He said, I demand riches in definite terms. I demand riches in definite terms. I know exactly what I want. I have a definite plan for acquiring riches. Do you know what I saw from the back? Everything Andrew did was a definite plan for acquiring riches. I am engaged in carrying out my plan. Some of you are sitting there and thinking, geez, I should do this. And the little voice says, don't do it. Another says, well, it's a good thing to do. No, don't do it. You spend all that money. You know, better stay poor. It's like we have monkeys in our mind. He said, I'm engaged in carrying out my plan, and I am giving an equivalent in useful service of the value of those riches I demand. That's pretty good, isn't it? Here, you can have that. Whoop. That's a special gold card. I only had one of them. All right? And you see, some people laugh at that stuff. Some do. Why? Well, we don't know how to make decisions. We don't know how to really move ahead. It's not that we're stupid, it's that we're ignorant. Now, everyone's ignorant. Ignorant simply means not knowing. And there's something holding us back, and we're not sure what it is. Now, let these lines on the screen, could you put them on all the screens, please? Yeah, let these lines represent levels of vibration. The levels of vibration are frequently called frequencies, all right? Levels of vibration are referred to as frequencies. Now, there are millions of frequencies, and you and I think on frequencies. Do you see, thought is energy. Thought waves are cosmic waves that penetrate all time and space. We're really just starting to understand something about the mind. Now, let's suppose these puffy little clouds are your thoughts and ideas that come together, yet it's those thoughts and ideas that produce the results that you're getting now. We know that we become what we think about. It's the frequency we're on that feeds the thoughts to our consciousness. And that's why we get the results we're getting. Then we'll sit and we'll look at this and we'll say, that's really what I want to do. And we're trying to think of how to do it. Well, we are never going to think of how to do it on that frequency. We're just not going to figure out how to do it on that frequency. The way to do that is not on that frequency. You know what we have to do? We have to make a decision. This is going to be done. Doesn't matter where the money is. Doesn't matter. Like, there's an old guy who was going to do something one time that was going to cost a lot of money. And this friend says, well, where's the money going to come from? Well, he says, wherever it is right now. Isn't that where it always comes from? There's many of you put a deposit on a house when you didn't know where the balance of the down payment was going to come from on closing day. But you're in the house. See, you don't figure out how you're going to do it and make the decision. You make the decision, then and only then will you figure out how to do it. Because what you've done, it's an irrevocable decision. You've flipped your brain onto a new frequency. And so the thoughts and things that get you there are on the new frequency. But we're trying to figure it out on the old frequency. And it ain't going to happen. It just is not going to happen. I want you to think about that for a moment. I want you to think of the number of things that you want to do, and you're waiting until everything's right. Everything's never going to be right as long as you stay in that. The Wright brothers didn't know how to get the plane off the ground when they decided they would. Hillary didn't know how to get to the top of the mountain. Hillary, when he went there in 1951, he failed miserably, didn't get. When he went home from Auckland, he was a beekeeper. His friends and relatives said, you're lucky you didn't die. Nobody had ever been to the top of the mountain. He says, oh, I'm going back. Then they got angry with him. And in 52 he went back. He failed again. He didn't get to the top of that mountain until 53. He and Tenzing Norgay were the first two to stand on top of the world. And they've never said who got there first. And Norgay's dead. Hillary's not talking. So we may never know. But one thing I do know, I've had the pleasure of working with him on 2 or 3 occasions, and he verified, oh yes, when you want to do something, you just make a decision. This will happen. You don't need anybody's approval. God gave you the ability to choose your own thoughts. If you were sitting there thinking, I'm going to do what Andrew talked about, do it. He's earned 30 million pounds. I was sitting there thinking, God, that's $60 million. That's not bad change for following somebody's direction. Wonder what we'd earn if we followed his. You see? Look it. If you want an extreme business makeover, it begins with yourself. You got to change you if you want to change the business. Now, I want you to think of this for a moment. Our world is changing. There's just absolutely no question about it. And the world's not getting bigger. The world is getting smaller. It's getting smaller. Now, I want you to think of this. That little briefcase over there, when I start to explain what that'll do, that'll give you a global business that you can earn an enormous amount of money with. And it's probably one of the most phenomenal programs you're ever going to see. But we've got a plan, and there's people earning tens of thousands. Just last month, one person earned $80,000 with it. $80,000, never left home. See? Now, I'm going to show you a little later how you can do that. But I want you to think about it. See? Now, think of this. In 1970, I had the very good fortune of being on a program at Chicago Human Resource Congress with Eric Hoffer. Hoffer said, in times of change, the learners will inherit the earth. Will the learned find themselves beautifully equipped to deal with a world that no longer exists? I thought that's pretty good. The learners will inherit the earth. Well, the learned, do you know there's no such thing as a learned person? There is no such thing as an educated person. Hill points out in the book, an educated person is not necessarily a person with an abundance of general or specialized knowledge. An educated person is a person who has so developed the faculties of their mind that they can acquire anything they want or its equivalent without violating the rights of others. Most people don't even know what the faculties of the mind are. There's no such thing as an educated person. The word education comes from the Latin educo, meaning to educe, to develop, or to draw from within. We're left with the idea you go to school, you answer the questions, they give you the degree, and you're educated. That meant you've gathered information. But there's all kinds of people who have gathered an enormous amount of information they don't know the war's over. They're wandering around out there, what are we supposed to do? You know, we're going to blame the prime minister. Or Bush. I mean, he's a hell of a good target. In times of change, do you know that change today is unprecedented? We're moving at a speed that is unprecedented. The opportunities that are staring us in the face is phenomenal. Every day, we have a person in our company that hits a button and whoo, we send messages to 200,000 people. Every day, we send out good information. How is that possible? Well, things change. We're living in a new economy. The economy that you and I were born into doesn't exist anymore. There's a new economy. The old rules have changed. Now there's some people trying to hold on to the old rules. They're really in trouble. If you want to win, you got to play by the new rules. Andrew explained a number of the new rules. I'm going to explain the new rules. I could show anyone in here, anyone, this is not an exaggerated statement. I could show anyone in here how to become a millionaire. There is not one person in the room that I couldn't show how to do it. Because I understand how to earn money. I've studied it for 38 years. Even if you're a little slow, if you study the same thing for 38 years, you're going to learn a little bit about it. Now, what did Gates say? He said, one thing is clear. We don't have the option of turning away from the future. No one gets to vote on whether technology is going to change our lives. It's changing it, and it's changing it fast. Now think of this for a moment. Success, financial success, has a lot to do with being in the right place at the right time. How many would agree with that? Quite a few. If I'd been sitting there, I would have too. But I've changed my mind. You know why? There's another factor that's missing. You've got to be aware that you're in the right place at the right time. Do you know that I don't even have to ask Andrew Reynolds, but I know that there were a number of people at that meeting in Memphis that he went to. I know that. I know he's a very wealthy human being, but I know he wasn't always. His daddy used to sit at a stool and wait for people to come in. I thought, what a brilliant opening he had to his talk. I wonder how many of those other people that were there took advantage of the opportunity. There isn't a person in this room, Andrew included, myself included, you, that cannot look back when there was an opportunity and we blew it, we missed it. It's only in retrospect that we saw it. Would you agree with that? It happens to everybody. They'll say, damn, if I had only known. John Asraf on The Secret, he's the man with the vision board. I started to coach him when he was 21. And I introduced him to a guy a few years back, 7, 8 years ago. And they were putting a thing together. The guy introduced it to his son, had this company said they were going to turn it public, and bamboo.com was the name of the company. So anyway, he and I had introduced a couple of people to them, but I was really busy, and they kept phoning, Bob, you got to get into this, you got to get into this. And I didn't even return the call sometimes, I was so busy. He earned $18 million on it, and the guy I introduced him to earned $72 million. I got nada. Now, I didn't even feel bad about it because those things come and they go, and that's what happens. And you start to understand, I probably wasn't supposed to do that. I was supposed to be doing what I was doing. But the point is that the opportunity can be here if we're not aware of the opportunity. You could hear everything that I'm saying. You could hear everything Andrew's saying or what the other speakers are saying, and you could go home and a year from now, you'll be in exactly the same spot you're in now. It's not that we don't get the information, it's that we're not aware of what it means at times, or we're not aware of why we reject it. Now, I want you to this is a marvelous graphic, at least I think it is. I want you to let the little dot in the screen represent your level of awareness. I'll let it represent mine. So that little dot represents our level of awareness. Now, our level of awareness, if we go back, our results are an expression of our level of awareness. So let's take another look here. What do you think would happen if we just expanded our level of awareness just a little bit? Now think of this for a moment. A person doesn't earn $100,000 a year because they want $100,000 a year. They earn $100,000 a year because they're not aware of how to earn $100,000 a month. Isn't that interesting? Is that right? That is right, isn't it? Well, think, damn, I'm working for it. I'm working for it because I'm not aware of how to turn it in. See, I think anybody can turn their annual income to a monthly income. It's a game. It's just a game. You learn the rules and you can play the game. Most people are playing the game. They don't know the rules. They're out kicking the ball. What do you mean net? What's a net for? Vince Lombardi used to take his new team out, and here's the American Football League, and he'd say, gentlemen, he'd hold up a football. This is a pigskin. It is a football. Our objective is to take this football down past the goal post at that end of the field and to stop the team at that end of the field, bringing it past the team at this end, or the goal post at this end of the field. Now, these are pro ball players earning big money. What was he doing? He was dealing with basics. Do you know, I think that's what we should do. We should deal with basics. Yes, it's basic. We're earning 100 a year because we're not aware of how to earn 100 a month. Now keep going. If we expanded our awareness, think of what would happen. So the question comes, how do we expand our level of awareness? Well, I have found that out after years of study. You expand your level of awareness through effective education combined with professional coaching over a reasonable period of time. It'll expand any person's level of awareness. This program, I work with the people that have it every week, every Monday here in the UK at 10 p.m. I am on the phone and I'm taking you line for line. You get in there and every line has a number. So I'll say, go to this section, go to this line, and then we start working with it and we expand on the idea. Just keep going. It's professional coaching. I'm a very good coach in this subject. Now, I'm pretty useless around anything at home. And I intend to stay that way. I don't know how to bake pies. I have no desire to bake pies. I do not have an awareness, and I don't want an awareness. But when it comes to earning money, to enjoying life, do you know that working is the very worst way to earn money? It is. And we're taught you go to work to earn money. You should go to work for satisfaction. You should spend your days doing what you love to do. You earn money by providing service. Well, what we're going to show you, and what Andrew's already shown you, is how to provide service. If there's somebody here that had a feeling you should do what Andrew says, let's suppose you only get a small fraction of the benefit, you'd be way ahead of the game. Don't ask anybody else. Go right out there and get it. Then do it. Discipline yourself, because after the break, I'm going to show you what you have to change insofar as the mind is concerned, and I'm going to show you how to change it. You can use it with your kids. You can use it for yourself, for anything, and I'm going to show you how to shift the paradigm, and when you do that, your whole life changes. That's what I did, and I didn't know what I had done, but after studying for years, I figured it out. Okay? Now, this thing, it's got gold in it, I'm telling you. This is a golden opportunity. It really is. And it's something you want to study. You should never leave home without it. That's why we put it in a briefcase. It's a business in a briefcase. Listen, you want to know something strange? We're going to show you how you can earn an absolute fortune with this, and all you have to do is just tell people, go and listen to Bob. You might give them the secret first. I'm the major player on the secret, probably because I'm the oldest, you know. But look, it's a decision. Just make a decision. It's such a simple decision and it's so misunderstood. Now here's a question that everyone should ask himself. And this is a good question. What is the primary cause of my results? Most people do not know the cause of their results. They'll say, well, it's the way I behave. Oh, is that right? That's a secondary cause. That's not a primary cause. You want to ask what's causing you to behave the way you behave. Like when I was a kid in school, the teachers say, why'd you do that? And I say, I don't know. She says, what do you mean you don't know? You know better. I know. Why'd you do it? I don't know. I got out of school and I go home. My mother says, why'd you do that? I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? You know better. I know. Well, why'd you do it? I don't know. I went and joined the Navy. Every commanding officer, Proctor, why'd you do that? I don't know, sir. What do you mean you don't know? You know better. Yes, sir. Why'd you do it? I don't know, sir. Then I got married. My wife says, why'd you do that? And I said, drop it right there. Listen, we're doing things we don't want to do, yet we don't know how to quit because we don't know why we're doing them. Now think. I want you to think of results. Think of your results. Why is it? There is such a huge difference in the results that people get in life. You know people who are nowhere near as bright as you. Now you do know. You know. I want you to think of them because you know them. They're nowhere near as bright as you, and they're earning bucos more than you. You think, what the hell's going on? They got a new car while they're going in debt. No, I heard they paid cash for it. Really? Yeah. Said they're following some guy named Reynolds who's got more money than God. What's holding people back? There you are. It's paradigms. They're stopped by all paradigms. So you have to ask yourself, you know, what do I know about paradigms? Barker wrote the book on it. He said, to ignore the power of paradigms to influence your judgment is to put yourself at risk when exploring the future. I think it's worth studying. What are they? Well, look, I'm actually a pretty simple guy. I've got just tremendous information. It's phenomenal. I've seen sick people get better. I've seen kids' marks in schools improve. I've watched all kinds of people earn millions just through sharing the information I got. And you know something? I could teach it to you in a relatively short period of time, and then you could do what I'm doing. You say, well, there's got to be more to it than that. Well, unfortunately, there's not. It's just that most people go through their life and never learn that. See, a paradigm is nothing but a multitude of habits. That's really what it is. It's a multitude of habits. Now, think of this for a moment. Back that up. See those ghosts coming into our life? They're other people's habits. Why do you think you look so much like your relatives? Do you know what that is? That's the DNA. You know that little particle of energy from dad and a little particle of energy from mom? They came to, they got married. That was the nucleus of you. All dad's habits, all mom's habits made you. That little seed. And then an attractive force started. Have you noticed that you have some of the little idiosyncrasies they have? Have you noticed that you like the same food they liked? Stop and think of what foot you put in your pants first. There's a lady sitting there with her hand like that. What foot do you put in your pants first? When you pull your pants on in the morning. What foot do you put in first? Your left. Now, you see, I put my right in. They'll say that's because she's a woman. It's got nothing to do. How many men put their left foot in their pants first? Yeah, see, there's a bunch of them. Why do you put your left in? Why do I put my right in? Well, I don't know. Well, I suggest you try and put your right in first. And I tried to put my left. We'd be stumbling all over the damn place with our pants. And yeah, we would. Try it. It's a habit. We're programmed. Why? Why'd I get my right? Well, our mother, when we're little kids, put your foot in there. Your other foot. Yeah, that's it. Isn't that the damnedest thing? Do you ever see how a baby's programmed? Do you know when a baby's born, it has ideas that are just inherently programmed right into the baby. Nobody has to teach a baby to suck. When they get a hold of a nipple, they know exactly what to do with it. Now, I want get your tongue in your mouth and suck. Do it, do it. Come on, do it. Do it, come on. Can you imagine teaching a baby how to do that? Can you imagine teaching anybody how to do it? Isn't it a good thing they can? But you know, a baby's not born with the knowledge of how to eat off a spoon. How do we get the idea in the baby's mind? We transfer the images through thoughts, feelings, and actions. We get the baby in our arm. Yet if the spouse is sitting there not thinking, they're going, subconscious mind is wide open. Hold your hand up like that. Everybody hold their hand up like that for a moment. Will you do that? Hold your hand. Put it here in your chin for a second. Will you do that? Where's your chin? I was talking to Andrew Reynolds backstairs, and I said, I bet they don't even know where their chin is. Oh, he says they know where their chin is. Like, what chin? Your chin. Why'd you do that? Because I did it. If I walked off a cliff, would you follow me? No. Do you know something? There's a reason why we do that. We're programmed. We're not programmed to think. We're programmed to follow. You see? That's why Huxley, great English writer, he said there's only one corner of the universe you can be certain of improving. That's your own self. You see, what we're talking about here, this deals strictly between you and yourself. I'm not involved. Andrew's not. It's just you. Remember that? How many would like to have multiple sources of income? Let me see a show of hands. All right. Now, I'm going to ask you to think. Now, I'm going to show you how you can with that little package. And you'd be amazed if you start to study that. It'll blow your mind. It's that good. Dr. Beckwith, Jack Canfield, myself have all been studying this for a long time. I often say I wished I was 3 because there's so much good to study. Now, here's how it works. I want you to think. You take this briefcase. This is called a 2-level affiliate. And this will make you earn millions if you will follow just what we said. Now, we have webinars where we explain this. You can just tell a person, go to this site, go to this site. Okay? And we explain how this whole thing works. Plus, we teach what's in it. So we're not only expanding their mind, we've given them a cash machine to follow. See, the SGR briefcase can turn your annual income to a monthly income. It's the most phenomenal concept you've ever seen. There it is there, open. Well, there's all the CDs. There's a 3-day program there. It's just about blow your mind. And you go through that, then you come to an open seminar. It's almost like you've never heard it because it just expands it again. I have been studying it since '68. Yet something I just never stopped studying. I think it was Mark Twain said, you know, if I had more time, I'd write you a shorter letter. Well, this author must have had a ton of time because he's put some good stuff together. He really has. Now, the whole thing's there. This is actually a business in a bag. And you can carry the little bag around, and that little seal on there, SGR, it's really going to mean something to you. We say this is where prosperity is predictable, and it really is. You got an MP3, you got CDs, you got the lessons. Now look it. I want you to imagine that you just introduced this program. You just send 2 people there, just 2. We're going to say they're A's. We'll just use A. And each one of those people that you introduce that program to, and you just send them to the webinar, we're going to sell them on the benefits of it, and I'm going to sell you on the benefit of it right after the break. Now, you would get a $500 commission on both of those. So there's $1,000. Now, let's suppose that's all they did was just introduce it to 2 people. You're going to get $250 on each one they market. That's pretty good, isn't it? Hello? You know, I felt like I was talking to the wall here for a minute. All right, now look here. Let's suppose you had 10 people selling this. Now, I know some of you, deal with groups of people. Some of you have lists. And let's suppose that you sold it to the 10 people. There's $5,000. And let's suppose they each sold 10 people. Now you're looking at $30,000. And this is easy stuff. This is not difficult. When you start to study this program and take a look at the marketing machine that we have built, you don't even have to build it. We built it. You've got automatic websites, automatic marketing tools. Everything is done for you. We've got the machine all built. All you have to do is just say, yep, and start telling people you want to go and look at this, you want to go and look at this. And I'm going to guarantee you get on the calls on Monday and we start taking you through there and you start studying those CDs, you're going to want to tell everybody about it. Now, we've always got some big hitters. Let's suppose you sold it to 100 people. I sold it for $5,000 in a month. Now, let's suppose you sell it to 100 people. There's 50,000. And let's suppose they each sold it to 10 people. What's happened? Now, you've earned a fair amount of money. Now, do you know what our problem is? If we're earning 50 or 100,000 a year, our paradigm's rejecting that. Your intellect, if you study this strictly from an intellectual perspective, you know what I'm saying is right. Now, after the break, I'm going to show you what happens, why we reject stuff like this, why we don't dig right into it, yet what you have to change to make that happen. Because when I show you how the mind works, it's rather fascinating. Now, if you really want to start playing a bigger game, and this is just one thing. Andrew showed you a whole bunch of things. Let's suppose you sold that to 20 people. Now you're into some real serious money. And you haven't done any work. This is just as you go about your day, say, you got to look at this. God, I'm studying this, and you take it everywhere and say, look at this. And you study it, it'll change your psyche. That's really that's what it's designed to do. This is all I've been doing now for years. Now look at, you can actually turn your annual income to a monthly income. Now, those of you that commit to this today, we are going to send our entire library of material. Now, the one there in the center, the Born Rich, the one right in the center, that's a 3-day video program that teenagers use to fly ahead in school. There's another one there, the Winner's Image. A lot of you are trying to lose weight. It's got nothing to do with diet. The weight of your body is controlled by the image in your mind. Your body is an instrument of your mind. It's subservient. What happens when you lose something? Your subconscious mind instantly starts to look for it. Why do you think people gain and lose tons in their lifetime? You've got to start to see yourself at your perfect weight. Looking good and feeling great shows you how to change the image. that whole library is worth a couple of $1,000s. Now, I have never given that away like this. But Andrew says, you're going to make the offer very special to this group. He says, because all the money from this group went to the hospital. So this is a special offer. And it's only good today. Tomorrow, it isn't any good. Now, you've already filled in your form. If you want to use it, turn it in at the break. And if you don't, that's fine too. You know, that's fine. But after the break, I'm going to show you how your mind works. Because you see, I know that some of you are thinking, damn, I'd like to do this. Then go and do it. You say, but I haven't got the money. You don't need the money because you haven't decided to do it. In this book, I wrote this book a number of years ago. I sent it to publishers and they all sent it back. One guy sent me back a note saying this book is absurd. Another fellow bought it, took it in Montreal. He never read it. He gave it to a guy in Montreal. The guy in Montreal bought 50,000 copies. I really got to like him. But in here, there's a guy who wanted to buy a house, and he said he couldn't because he didn't have any money. And I said, you don't need any money. He says, what do you mean? I said, you haven't made a decision to buy the house. When you make the decision to do it, you'll always find the money to do it. I always tell people, if you have to borrow money from your grandmother to do something that you really want on a gut level, then do that. That's where I used to borrow it. That's why I say my grandmother. But I do know one thing. If you don't change what's inside, nothing outside is going to change. You can have the greatest opportunities in the world, but it won't change. Here, you can have this. Okay? That's the only one I got of that. All right? You see, you got that by sitting in the front. You know, usually you got to come real late to get in the front. You know. All right, now we're going to take a break, and when we come back, I'm going to dig into the guts of that. And I'm going to break it down and show you why we do what we do and how we change it. And you're going to find it fascinating. How you feeling? Oh, come on. Let's say wonderful, and let's do it all together. Wonderful means full of wonder. How you feeling?